Welcome to the podcast, Wake Up Humans with Steve Judson, part 2 of Steve Judson Up Close with Dr. Amlinger.
What happens to the person that's walking around with a subluxated atlas? Can they be fully dialed in?
I don't believe so. And in my experience, I would say no. And I've had the privilege of adjusting a bunch of people who thought they were dialed in, and once we clear their atlas out, they just find a whole new level.
Right.
And that manifests differently. Some people said, I thought it was dialed in. I was actually just unaware, and I was believing a line of bullshit that I was feeding myself.
Right.
Or others where it was always fuzzy, and I remember a guy, I'm remembering it right now, he owned a little furniture store. It was kind of like an IKEA knockoff sort of thing, if you will, and I had went in to see him, and when I was starting my practice, and my habit back when I started my practice was if I needed something for the office, could be in anything, it could be a chair, it could be a bookshelf, whatever, I would go to 3 places, speak to the owner or the manager, and then afterwards I would write them all letters, enclose a couple business cards, and say, if you ever require my services, I'd love to be of service for you. And this guy kept my letter. And a year after I opened my office, he phoned me to make an appointment. And he thought he was coming in for low back pain or neck pain or whatever it was. It's 33 and a half years ago now. Anyway, long story short, he came in and at his first progress check, so like 18 visits later, it's like, what's different in your life? He's like, I was going bankrupt and now I'm not. I'm like, really? Tell me about that. He said, I just didn't give a shit about my business. I was going through the motions, but there was no passion, there was no spark, there was nothing.
Spark.
And once I started getting adjusted, the passion just showed up. The spark just showed up. And it's turned my business around in like 6 weeks.
It sounds like you gained some clarity by getting clear.
Yeah, I had a dude come in. He's bigger than you, taller than you, wider than you, and he had a purple mohawk and a braided goatee, and he had a safety pin in his cheek with a chain going to a piercing in his ear or his nose, one or the other. And his patient entry form said, reason for consulting this office, my wife made me. Now his wife was about 5'3", 108 pounds, and he's like 6'6", like
big
dude. And I'm like, really? And anyway, I read it and I looked at him and I judged him. I said, well, obviously this guy's an asshole, so he's not going to I'm not going to spend a whole bunch of time on him. Right. And so I went, all right, well, let's get started. Didn't really do a case history. He was giving me nothing. And I ran my scanner up his neck, and I was using a neuroclirometer at the time, and the needle just popped 7 right on him. And I
wow.
went, and Innate said, ask him about his depression. I'm like, so how long you been dealing with depression? And he literally jumped out of the chair. I was behind him. He spun and looked at me and said, she told you I'm going to effing kill her. And he didn't say it. He yelled it. And I just eyeballed him and said, dude, she didn't tell me anything. I just knew. And something happened, and he calmed down, and he told me his story. And he had been 7 years prior, he had been the youth minister in a big church. And he said, I don't know what happened, but the spirit left me. And so I've left the church. And his whole stick, the mohawk and the everything, that was his hook to get into troubled youth. And he was in a band that was recording music and selling albums, CDs back in the day, and touring, and he just stopped making music. And he was on a high dose of Prozac, and he said, I hate being on it, but if I don't take it, I grow horns and hair on my hands, and I do bad things to my wife and my kid.
Jeez.
And I went, all right. let's get you checked. And we got his pattern and we x-rayed him and got his listing. I remember it was PRI, and he came back the next day for his report, and I laid him on the table and I adjusted his brainstem and cleared the interference, and he jumped off the table and he went, "It's back." And I said, "What?" He said, "The spirit." I went, "Okay." He goes, "I'm stopping Prozac." And I'm like, you might want to talk to your medical. I'm just stopping it, right? So you're supposed to wean yourself off Prozac, right? And so he stopped it cold turkey. He's had
on his own,
one adjustment. I get a phone call the next day. My grandmother passed away. I won't be in the rest of the week. I'm going to the funeral. I'm like, fuck, right? Here's a lawsuit coming at me. The dude stopped cold turkeys. I want to like it's going to be a shit show. And he came in the Monday, and I'm like, "Dude, how'd it go?" And he said, "I cried for the first time in 7 years. It was awesome." And he never looked back. And 6 months into care, he was back in the church. He was back making music. He's now got 4 children. They're all growing. This was years and years ago, but he had 4 children. He's never looked back. Him and his wife started a music store, and their purpose in life is to bring people to Christ through music. And
see, I think the beauty of that is when he said, "The spirit left me."
Yeah.
And, chiropractic has this stigmatism of, pain, low back pain, neck pain. And the discussions you and I have, and this is why we're going to be doing these things, these podcasts, and you'll be on it a lot more, man.
I'm looking forward to when we do the retreats.
Yeah.
And then get down and dirty with people.
Because when we start, the people need to hear this truth, and it's about their spirit, and it's about people, when they lose their spirit, they lose their way, they lose their expression of life. And here's this big badass guy that told you point blank, "I lost my spirit."
Yeah.
And one adjustment, he was reignited. And it saved his life, his kid's life, his wife's life. I mean,
so he came in with a new tattoo one day, and he said, "You like my new ink?" And I'm like, "It's cool. What's it mean?" And he said, "It's Cairo."
Come on.
And I went, "Really?" So I was taught that Cairo comes from Greek, and it means hand, right? And so chiropractic is the practice by hand.
Right.
He said, "Well, there's also a Latin," I think he said there's a Latin derivative, and it means, catch this, it means in Christ.
Come on.
True story. So I should have followed my rule and not just taken it at face value and proven it, but I haven't, but I will.
Well, you got a lot of people that are look it up after this, man.
Yeah, for sure. So someone will let us know.
But it's like, you look at, here's this guy now sharing with you, teaching you. I mean, I look at our hundreds and hundreds, thousands of patients that when they wake up, they come back and they're sharing and teaching us and carrying us on our journey because, you look what you've done over 30 years of connecting people like this.
Yeah, and I think the 3 most important words in my vocabulary right now are reconnection or connection, surrender, and awareness.
So
right? Connection, surrender, and awareness. And see, most of us are moving through life like a robot, and we're just responding to life in small letters. I make a distinction: capital L, capital I, capital F, capital E is life. It's the life flowing through us. To me, it means let innate flow effortlessly, and versus life in small and lowercase, which is simply the debris that shows up on our river of life.
So, for the person listening to this that's not in tune with our philosophy, what does innate mean?
So, innate literally means inborn, right? So innate intelligence, that is that inner intelligence, that inner knower. And by definition, it's infinite. It is its mission is to maintain you in a state of active organization, which means a state where you can accurately sense and respond to your world on all levels.
Right.
So its mission is really to maintain a state of harmony and balance within each of us, and with respect to our relationship with all of creation.
What would society look like if more people were connected to their innate?
It's a great picture, isn't it? It's like, and our hero B.J. Palmer had a vision of what society would look like 700 years after that happened.
Wow.
And it was called BJ's Utopia, and it would be a world with way less crime and with fewer, if any, wars, and with smaller governments and lower tax burdens because people would be healthier,
right?
And crime rates would drop, and and we know there's evidence where people who track coherence, which is a function of heart rate variability. I'm getting techie now, but bottom line is there's been studies where people have gotten together and meditated and gotten into a state of what's called coherence. And when they hold that space in that community for a number of hours or a weekend, the rate of violent crime drops and the rate stays down once they leave.
Right.
And so what the chiropractic adjustment does, and I measure heart rate variability and coherence as outcome measures. And so what chiropractic adjustment does is it improves people's heart rate variability and puts them into a state of coherence. And so if we coupled clearing a group of people of subluxation and then led them in a coherence exercise, and then we sat and held a vision for humanity, what would happen?
Wow. It's a great vision. And we've talked about for many years, you and I, getting together and bringing people through these experiential experiences. I mean, we've done it with doctors, which is cool. But there's something about a shift I feel happening about starting to bring it to the people. And we've talked about this with Wake Up Humans. We have our Wake Up Humans. It's a private Facebook page about bringing this to the lay person because, they're not showing up to things like DE. And we've done gatherings and things where we've worked together as doctors to make ourselves better connected people to help people. But what if the lay person starts grabbing a hold of this, and what does the future look like in that?
Well, and I mean, it's just so really what it is, and it's an adjustment on another level, right? And if we could do that with, and I hate the term lay people, but if we could do that with a broader community,
right?
People would hold their adjustments better. Bottom line, they'd become more adaptable, they'd become more aware,
right?
They'd be more inner guided, and that would decrease the tension and dissonance in their life, and they would hold their adjustments better. And so, it's not just for it's like when we only do it with chiropractors, it's like this isn't for us. This principle's for humanity, and it's kind of like we're hiding it under a bushel basket, you know. So it's one thing to just physically remove the interference with the adjustment, but we also have to. The way I look at it is, we have to help people remember that they have an innate intelligence, and we need to reacquaint them with it, and then we need to, and then we need to. Take them through some experiences that sort of demonstrates to them its presence and how to tap into it, so to speak, which is
and how their experiences created their story, that's created 100%. Their state of mind.
And it's about thoughts are seeds of future deeds, is what the old saying says. So we need to help them understand that if they change their story, their life will change, because our self-talk is perpetual and usually under our radar of consciousness. So we're not even aware of the message we're putting into ourselves. It's like, how many people come in the office and you say, "How you going?" And they're like, "Not too bad." I'm like, "Well, what the hell does that mean?" Right. And we know that the innate brain doesn't hear negative, so when they say "not too bad," their innate brain hears bad. Yeah. Right? And then they go out and create more bad in their life.
That's why I always say awesome, or what do we
Near
say?
perfect.
Near perfect.
Yeah, and that's the deal with
Yeah.
it, So, and we're all victims of our programming, right?
Programming,
We're
yeah.
all victims of our unexplored thoughts,
Right.
right? Our unconscious, under the radar thoughts, and our programming. And so what we do is we start reacting to our environment. And Viktor Frankl said, no matter what's going on in our life, that there's a moment between the stimulus and the response. There's a gap in between those two things. It might be small, but there's a gap where you always have the opportunity to choose. And most of us aren't aware of that gap.
Right.
So it's really about getting into that gap and enlarging it, and then making a choice. And now instead of reacting, you're responding.
Right.
And to me, there's a major distinction between those two words.
So they always say that all of us, we have a story, we have a book, we have, that book inside of us. And, I turned around and wrote Wake Up Humans and Atlas Adjusted, and I can't wait. You've got a book coming out. It's been 30 plus years in the making.
I've been talking about it a long time, haven't I?
You've been talking about it a long time, and it turned into an email, almost like a newsletter, thought flash of the week. And I love the title of it. Why don't you share? It's not out yet. It's in process.
Yeah.
What's the title of your book?
The title is Wisdom from My Nuts.
Yeah.
And
now, when you're talking about nuts, you talking about your testicles?
no, because they're not very wise. But it's so the book is written, and it's just going off to a journalist, an ex-journalist, a retired journalist, not an ex-journalist, who's going to edit it and sort through it for me, and there could be a book or two in it. But so I had an experience with an acorn, where I was out in nature once, and an acorn just spoke to me, and from that, just an awareness of the fact that within that acorn is an oak forest, right? And from that oak
within that acorn is an oak forest.
So it's just not a nut, but you plant that nut and in the right conditions and with nurturing, and it doesn't even need nurturing because oak trees have been growing on their own forever. But I just saw, when I was meditating in front of that acorn, this oak forest, and then the habitat that would create, and the ecosystem that would support wildlife and whatnot. And then I thought about how we could harvest that forest and build kitchen tables and to share Thanksgiving dinners around, or cribs for our babies, or coffins to help our loved ones transition and celebrate their lives. And then I thought, we could take a match that we could make from those oak trees and destroy in hours what it took innate intelligence centuries to build.
Right.
And so to me, it represents the infinite possibilities within each and every one of us. It represents the connectedness of all of us to all of creation. And my nuts are just anybody and everybody and everything, because I've sat with natives, and I appreciate that all living things have an innate intelligence, and that the trees are brothers and sisters, and that wildlife are brothers and sisters, and that we're all related, and that we're all connected. And so for me, my nuts are just any person or anything in creation that I've had an experience with, and a reflection upon what they've taught me.
Right.
Like my dog that just ran into the room. So Wisdom from My Nuts literally is just about the distinctions I've made through the experiences I've had with all the people in my life, family, friends, patients, young hockey players I coached, experiences on trout streams, just my collective experience, and how the Creator directed me to put it down on paper.
It's there's people who go through walks in life, and they go through the motions. Rightfully so, they don't know any better. And then there's people like yourself who go through life, and they go through their stressors, and they were maybe a punk kid getting into trouble, And then they say, well, I'm going to become a chiropractor, and they discover a principle, and then they're fishing one day and they discover their spirit. It's almost like God taps them on the shoulder and says, you're going to be a teacher. You're not going to walk the normal life. You're going to be a person who are now choosing that you're going to try to raise people's energy. You're going to connect them to their purpose in life. You're going to connect them to their spirit, which is actually going to transform and save their life, like that gentleman you were talking about.
Yeah.
It's a calling that you didn't ask for, but you were tapped on the shoulder.
Yeah, and so my observation is that most, and I've been involved in leadership positions in chiropractic and whatnot, which I never went out looking to be a teacher. I never went out looking to be involved in the leadership of chiropractic.
It picked you.
It picked me. It found me. And my observation is that when it happens that way, it's not always beautiful and whatnot, but it's always purposeful, and there's an elegance to it.
Well, it's more authentic.
Yeah,
than the person that's looking for significance, trying to become a leader.
It's like you can't push. The old expression is you can't push the river, right? And so if you let it find you, that's the river flowing as it should. If you go looking for it, you're pushing the river.
I like it.
Right, and so and it's one of those points of surrender. And the Bible tells us that there are spiritual gifts. There are gifts of the Spirit, and we are all given a unique combination of them.
Right.
So part of my surrendering is just the acknowledgement and with complete humility that God blessed me with the gift of healing through the touch, and which is the chiropractic adjustment, but also through the word, which is my speaking and writing and mentoring and whatnot. And so the awareness that I've been blessed with those gifts by the Creator breeds humility and breeds a reverence around it, so that I must work to develop those gifts to the utmost and express them in an authentic fashion to glorify the Creator and for the good of the people, not for myself, right? And so thankfully I've had mentors in my walk, like Dr. Sid and our DE family and Dr. Santo and Sigafus and the elders I've sat with, and some high school teachers and my wife and who keep me grounded in the vision, but also who have constantly kept me focused on being humble around it as well.
Right.
And so I'm thankful for my gifts, and I honor them, and I accept them. But with that, the acceptance of the gift comes an incredible responsibility.
Yeah.
And everybody who's listening needs to understand that they all have a unique combination of gifts and talents that are gifts from the Creator, that are spiritual gifts that they need to become aware of. And they need to cultivate and grow and master and express in their authentic way, so that we can all evolve together, right? Because it's like we're all cells in the body of humanity, and we're only as healthy as our sickest cell. So we're all in it together, man, right? And
I think the greatest gift is that you surrendered.
Yeah.
And I think that's I think we can agree upon, as we're, physically adjusting people and clearing them out, the greatest gift is that they will surrender.
Yeah, man. And you see it. I'm at a level of awareness now where I can observe it unfolding.
Right.
Which is, and then the challenge becomes to stay out of the way of it.
Yeah. Well, I think we could agree upon. Well, I'll tell you guys one thing. We'll definitely have more conversations like this. I mean, you and I could speak for hours.
Yeah.
And being our first time doing this, I mean, I don't know what our editor will do with 2 hours of conversation, but we could go on forever, man.
Yeah.
Because it's a road that we love serving people and helping them reach their potential.
And the red road has been described as the road that's narrow and filled with obstacles.
Right.
that goes on forever. So I'm just
Amen.
happy that my feet are firmly planted on it and that I'm walking that road with you.
Well, we'll keep everybody in tune for wisdom from my nuts. Is it nut or nuts?
Nuts.
And we'll be back, man. This was an absolute gift. We had who was the guest appearance? What's the name of your dog?
Cambry.
You know, listen, this podcast is raw. It doesn't have to be freaking perfect. I don't give a shit about a dog scratching on a door. It's all part of the human experience, and we got to learn that no matter what happens, we keep moving forward. And I love you for being part of the journey with me, and I look forward to more discussions, brother.
Yeah, man, that's a blessing. And one of the ways God proved Himself was putting you and I together. And I remember when and where it happened. It was at the bar at the when my mom was going through something and you were going through the same something, and it was like bang.
Right time.
Yep.
Lining of the stars.
Yep.
Nothing happens by chance, man. Everything has a greater purpose.
Got it. And if not for your wife, my wife and I probably wouldn't be together.
And that's a whole other story we'll talk about another time. God bless y'all.
You've been listening to Wake Up Humans with Steve Judson. To get Steve's books, Wake Up Humans and Atlas Adjusted, just visit Amazon. The Wake Up Humans podcast is a copyright of Steve Judson. Be sure to look up other episodes. Wake Up Humans will educate, inspire, and bring you clarity. Thanks for listening to Wake Up Humans with Steve Judson. Visit wakeuphumans.org.